On the streets of central Melbourne, anyone who even looked like they were heading to Land Forces Expo was fair game for protesters.
Is this democracy?
At times, it looked like urban combat. Police used stun grenades and rubber bullets to drive demonstrators back. Despite the biggest police deployment in Victoria for more than 2 decades, outside the Melbourne Convention and Exhibition Centre, many delegates came face to face with angry demonstrators.
If you are attending this expo, you are supporting the military-industrial complex. You are complicit in the killing of children in Gaza.
Do you feel comfortable when you see protesters jostling delegates and people on the way in here?
I have no problem with it.
Parts of the CBD were shut down. Morning peak hour traffic slowed to a crawl.
Land Forces Expo has only just started, and already protesters are testing police lines. For the police here and for delegates and protesters, this could be a long rest of the week in Melbourne.
Several groups, from Students for Palestine to the Socialist Alliance, have been planning demonstrations against Australia's largest defence expo for months. Many had hoped to keep this protest non-violent.
Free speech is important, and I think if people are not harming or intimidating people, I think that that's totally acceptable.
But clearly, there was intimidation and violence. Police were spat on, pelted with horse manure, and bottles filled with liquid which they identified as acid. 24 officers were treated for injuries. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said some protesters crossed a line.
You don't say you're opposed to defence equipment by throwing things at police.
Behind the protective lines, thousands of attendees made it inside to the expo. For exhibitor Travis Reddy, it wasn't easy.
Did you have much of an issue getting in here today?
I had to go with Plan B, absolutely. But, you know, I find the whole thing interesting. We all have views and opinions, and everyone's entitled to protest, but we're also entitled to go about our business, and we do it peacefully. And the use of force in a peaceful demonstration, I find an interesting moral conundrum for me.
Former Defence Minister Christopher Pyne is now the chairman of a global munitions company.
We protect their right to protest. They wouldn't be able to protest in Beijing or Moscow or Tehran or Caracas, but we protect their right to protest. So, in fact, they remind me why we do what we do in defence and defence industry, which is to protect our values. And our values are freedom of speech and the right of association, freedom of association. And so I welcome the protesters as long as they are peaceful. Now, these protesters have been less than peaceful, and so the police are taking what action they need to protect people's rights.
I'm proud to stand here today and usher in the next evolution of armoured vehicle technology.
Most of the big players are here, including Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and defense giant IAI from Israel.
We are here to showcase our abilities and our cutting-edge technologies.
Did you ever hesitate? Was there ever any second thought that you might not come?
Of course not.
Companies say this is a unique opportunity to develop business in Australia and the Asia-Pacific region.
Victoria's government says Land Forces Expo is worth all the security and disruption. 700 companies, 10,000 attendees, delegates from 45 countries. All of that producing a boost of at least $70 million to Victoria's economy.
Inside the expo hall, there was no indication as to what was happening outside. As the arrests piled up through the day, Victoria's Greens said the blame for these events rests with the Premier, Jacinta Allen.
The Premier could have cancelled this weapons expo and she could have prevented this protest from going ahead in the first place. We gave her that opportunity weeks and weeks ago, and instead of doing that, they've deployed thousands of police at a huge cost to taxpayers' money to protect the interests of these multinational weapons company and their right to profit over the community's safety.
Any industry deserves the right to have these sorts of events in a peaceful and respectful way. But what we are seeing here that is being driven by the Greens political parties is rank opportunistic behaviour to use this conference to drive further division.
The Greens have called for an inquiry into excessive police violence at today's protests. The Chief Commissioner of Victoria Police called those claims rubbish and condemned demonstrators.
So I've used the term hypocrites because we support peaceful protest and we facilitate that all the time. What we saw today was not peaceful protest.
Speaking to their audience on social media, some of the organisers of today's protests boasted of their success.
There's still a bunch of us here, and we are resisting, and we're going to keep holding the line. Their weapons don't scare us. We're going to stay here, and we're going to keep disrupting it. And I have a little bit of pepper spray in my hair, but it's all good. And yeah, we're going to keep going all of the 3 days.
The Land Forces Expo runs until Friday. For Melbournians caught in the crossfire, the protests may not be over yet.